channel, as today I take a closer look at the very first Alien Predator NECA Deluxe set. This was in the early days of NECA holding the license to these two great characters, and as I said, was the first time they paired them both together in one set. This was very exciting to me at the time. I remember having the Aliens vs Predator set from Kenner many years ago, which funnily enough NECA would also go on to reproduce in the glorious 7-inch scale. But suffice it to say, at the time of release, this was tremendously exciting, having both the original Alien and the original Predator together in one deluxe box set. So, looking at the packaging, of course this is all entirely window display. It is of course in that clamshell packaging. And at the very top of the packaging we have both Alien and Predator's respective logos, and at the bottom there we see some individual imagery associated with each character. For the Alien on the left hand side we see those alien eggs and the green sort of effect. On the right hand side we see the sort of targeting system and the sort of red hues of Predator. Looking at it now, the merging of these two worlds seems a little bit incongruous. They seem to clash a little bit and it doesn't naturally flow, but it still looks really attractive and it's still very eye-catching. So for me, I still get very excited when I see this in packaging. I think this looks absolutely tremendous on display. Here you can see the interior inlay, so you can get a better sense of what the art design looks like here. So pretty attractive stuff in the main, but my big bugbear with this is that this is all paper. This is very, very thin, glossy paper, and it doesn't feel very substantial, so it's liable to tear if you're not careful when you're removing the figures from the packaging. On each of the side panels we see the respective character, we see the Predator and the Alien, and this is photographs of the actual figures themselves taken by NECA's very highly skilled photography department, because they do fantastic jobs of photographing their figures. And then on the reverse we have another couple of photos, close-ups of the action figures, which look great. I really like the green light behind them as well. This really helps those figures like really pop out here. So this looks really, really good. We have a little bit of bio about each character, and then at the bottom there we can see some of the other early releases from the Predator and Alien waves. Okay, so let's start off by taking a look at the Jungle Hunter Predator. Now, this is based on the first mold they had for this character, so you will notice, of course, that it doesn't have the enhanced articulation of the Ultimate versions, which came much later. But in terms of sculpting, they set the bar pretty high very, very early on. They've never really improved upon this because it's pretty fantastic. So here, of course, we have the unmasked Jungle Predator. I think this looks really, really good. Pretty faithful to what we see on screen. Can't really fault this. Sculpting is brilliant. The paint taps are fantastic. Lots of different gradients of colour here. And I just think overall, this is very, very effective and just very highly detailed. So once again, NECA have done a fantastic job when it comes to their sculpting and paint apps to create really hyper-detailed action figures. The backpack is prefixed, but it is removable, so you can have two distinctive looks for your Predator with or without the backpack. I happen to prefer it with it on. I think it just looks more complete, and it slots into place very easily and very securely. The plasma cannon is also articulated, so you can arch that forwards and backwards on a hinge there, but there's also a ball joint at the top of the plasma cannon there, so you can position this into any position you want it to be aimed at, which is good stuff. For anyone who owns one of the later Ultimate Edition Predators, you will notice the torso is significantly different. Obviously, there is no torso joint, so there is no unseemly line. This is one piece, but again, very nicely sculpted and painted, and that netting is sculpted into the figure itself, not just painted on, which is fantastic. You'll notice a lot of the extra bits and pieces when it comes to the chest, those loose sort of dangling bones around him. They're separate pieces on a string. They've been recycled multiple times on all of their future releases. They tend to be quite fragile, so you do have to be careful with these because they can snap up very easily, but they look fantastic. But as you can see, an awful lot of detail here, lots of fantastic paint apps to capitalise on this wonderful sculpt, and it just looks very realistic and very authentic. The blades on his right gauntlet are extendable, so you can pull them out, and they extend quite a distance, or you can push them back into place. Sadly, his left gauntlet doesn't have the lift-up panel that we would see on some later releases, which is a real shame. And whilst the legs for the most part are pretty much the same as what we'd see a little bit later on, one of the key differences, of course, is the articulation in the hips, where they would rely on a ball joint. These rely very much on a swivel, which we'll take a look at in a minute. And speaking of articulation, he does have a straight swivel at the head there, so he can move his head from side to side, but he cannot move it up or down. He does, however, have ball joints in the shoulders, and thankfully those shoulder pads do not get in the way. They're made of a rubber that move with the articulation, which is great. And then he has a pin swivel at the elbow, so that lower forearm can rotate all the way around, and it will hinge to about 90 degrees as well. Now, there is a sort of pin swivel at the wrist as well, so that hand will rotate all the way around and it will hinge forwards and backwards a little bit. Not a huge range of motion, but enough to create some dynamic poses. Now, here we will see there is a straight swivel at the waist, and that's it. There is no ab crunch and there's no ball joint here. Again, we have a swivel at the hips here, and as you can see, it's that diagonal swivel, which is a little bit awkward and makes him very difficult to pose. He does have a thigh swivel at the top there, which is pretty helpful. But you will notice that thankfully he has another pin swivel at the knee, so that allows that lower leg to rotate all the way around and hinge to about 90 degrees. So he can kick that lower leg up, and then finally there is another mini ball joint at the bottom of the ankle there that allows the foot to hinge forwards and backwards and move from side to side. Now, by today's standards, this figure is a little bit dated now. It's a little bit limited when it comes to its articulation, but actually in many ways, because of that lack of articulation, it feels a lot smoother. It's more statuesque, but it actually feels a lot more faithful and a lot more authentic to what we see on screen, because it is all pretty neatly molded together without any seams or breaks or gaps. So it looks pretty astonishing. So even now, it stands up really very, very well in the collection when it's on display. Okay, so next up we have Alien from Alien, better known as the Big Chap. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe this was the first time we had this version of the Alien released in action figure form from NECA. Now, it's just my personal opinion, but I do think that the original design for the Alien was probably the best, despite all the numerous sequels and appearances from the Alien across the years. I still think that this is the best iteration of the Alien, and there's something very haunting about its look, particularly with those sort of empty eye sockets in the top of the dome there, which is translucent. I think this looks tremendous. We don't see a great deal of the Alien in the first Alien film, so it's difficult to get photo references, but this looks pretty faithful to what we see on screen and is pretty horrific looking. Again, tons and tons and tons of detail in the sculpting, although the paint is kept to a minimum here. This was the first Alien figure I ever got from NECA, and I was super impressed that you can open the jaw and pull out the interior mini jaw within. I just thought that was so cool, and it's so deftly handled. I just think it's fantastic. As I said, the overall sculpting is pretty immense. There's so much detail here, all these individual sort of tubey things running through the body. There's not an inch of this figure that hasn't been covered in some detailing. And although the paint apps are fairly minimal, you can see a couple of different washes running through it just to give it a little bit more texture. Now, the tubes on the back are actually made of rubber, but they look really, really good. And it's nice that they are a little bit flexible again, adding a slightly different texture to this figure overall. And you may be wondering about the tail. Well, this is a rubber tail with a wire inside it, so of course it is sort of articulated in the sense that you can pose this in multiple different positions to create different looks, and also help it to balance, because there are some issues with this figure standing. If we look at the feet here, these aren't evenly adjusted. It can be quite difficult to get this figure to stand. Now, you can do it if you persevere, but the way his legs are positioned, this makes it a little bit tricky, and balance can be an issue with this figure. Articulation on the Big Chap is a lot more limited. There is a sort of straight swivel at the neck, so he can just about move his head from side to side, but there's a lot of resistance here. He can sort of nod it up and down, so I guess it's more of a ball joint, but again, doesn't really hold its position. There are some very clear ball joints in the shoulders, however, which lift up and out. There is an upper bicep swivel there, and there is a single joint at the elbow, allowing that lower forearm to bend to about 90 degrees. There's another straight swivel at the wrist, so that hand can rotate all the way around, and then there's another joint here in the torso that might be a ball joint, but it doesn't really move that much. The legs again suffer from that diagonal swivel at the hips there, which looks a little bit gangly and awkward, but there is a straight swivel above the knee that allows the lower leg to move from side to side, and of course there is another single joint at the knee there, but there's not a huge range of motion in it. It just kind of rocks forward and backwards ever so slightly, and then finally there's one last hinge at the ankle there. All in all, despite having several points of articulation, you can't get an awful lot of positions or movements out out of this figure. It is quite restrictive and quite limited, unfortunately. But that being said, it still looks very, very impressive. And if you're willing to persevere with it, you can get some really interesting, fantastic displays out of this figure. Accessories are fairly light with this set, but we do get a Predator skull and an Alien skull. These are very nicely sculpted and they're very well painted to really create that authentic bone effect. Now, as a quick scale comparison, both of these figures are sculpted in the 7-inch scale. That means they fit in line with your average human figure set at 7 inches. So the Predator is a little bit taller, he's probably closer to 8 inches, and the Alien, when he's at full standing width, then he is probably pushing 9 inches. So as you can see, they scale quite nicely against each other. I'm not sure what the exact height differential should be between these two particular characters, but if you throw a human character into the mix, then they look very fearsome and monstrous indeed. Final thoughts then? Well, I have to say, for the day and age of this release when this came out, it was pretty revolutionary. I was really happy to get my hands on it, and I was super, super impressed with it. Now, by today's standards, yes, they definitely seem a little bit dated. They'd certainly feel a little bit restrictive when it comes to the articulation, because we've seen all those wonderful Ultimate Editions of both of these characters being produced across the years, and they've definitely capitalised and made improvements and small tweaks here and there. But despite all of that, this is still a really impressive set by itself. And I have to say, actually in some ways, maybe the increased improved articulation might be a hindrance in certain circumstances, particularly with the Predator, where some of those improvements have involved creating extra joints that are just very unseemly and very obvious, and this does away with all that. So this looks really, really good and quite seamless in its own way, and it's pretty effective when you put them on display. So I still have nothing but good things to say about this set. I think it's a really nice set of these two characters, and it'll always have a strong place of affection in my heart. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a like, and remember to subscribe as there'll be plenty more videos soon.